Good afternoon and welcome to the Senate Committee on Education. Today is Friday, January 30th. It's 1 p.m. in room 229. And we are here to hold informational briefings on Hawaii P20 Partnerships for Education and the Department of Education budget and capital improvement projects. A live stream of all Senate Standing Committee meetings will be available on the Senate YouTube channel in case you missed this or you want to watch yourself when you go home this weekend. So with that, start off with Hawaii P20. Stephen Schatz. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Senator Kim, Senator Hashimoto, Senator DeCourt. Appreciate the opportunity to be here. My name is Stephen Schatz. I'm the Executive Director of Hawaii P20 Partnerships for Education. To my knowledge, I don't think we've ever done a P20 specific briefing, so definitely appreciate the ability to have a conversation with members of the committee and share with the public some of the work that we've been up to, both as P20 the organization, but also P20 the partnership, which is between the University of Hawaii, the K-12 public school system, and the Executive Office of Early Learning. So appreciate the opportunity to talk a little bit about what we've accomplished, what our purpose is, and how we do our work. So our purpose is to strengthen the educational pipeline. In particular, we focus on areas of transition. So we wake up in the morning thinking about the transitions between early ed and kindergarten, between middle and high school, between high school and college and the workforce. And we fulfill this purpose by doing two different functions. One is we serve as what's sometimes called an education intermediary, meaning we're a facilitator. We convene, we bring people together, we try and solve problems together. So we leverage that convening power, the data that we can provide, and we work with our partners to try and find a way to make sustainable change. And then we're also a direct service provider. So especially through our Gear Up work, but also in our Pathway Shop, we are on the ground working with schools, providing direct services or funding for direct services to schools throughout the state. We do both of these things with an eye for systemic change. So like even if we're implementing a program that is a grant-funded program, we're often thinking about how can we create change for the entire system? How can we make this a sustainable thing that goes on beyond this particular grant? And our four areas are early care and education, improving post-secondary readiness and success, career pathways, which includes career and technical education, and education and workforce data. So those are the four strategic areas of our plan. So I want to just talk a little bit about what we've accomplished in our next steps. I'll try and be real quick here. With stakeholders, we developed a statewide literacy plan, which laid the groundwork for multi-million-dollar federal grants to the state of Hawaii. We piloted and scaled a Summer Start kindergarten program with philanthropic funds. So this was like for incoming kindergartners, basically a transition program. And this was funded through the Samuel and Mary Castle Foundation. And this is a great example of where we tried something with a little bit of philanthropic dollars, and then the DOE took it on, and now this is going on in around 85 schools across the state. We helped to develop a kindergarten transition toolkit, and then these two websites that you see right there are resources for families to figure out eligibility and also the availability of early childhood programs in their region. Finally, we awarded about $3.5 million of wage stabilization bonuses to over 1,500 early childhood educators across the state in the last little bit. One of our new things that we're going to work on is we are looking at EOEL classrooms. And so our EOEL is like regular school hours, 8 to 2. So for parents who are not able to pick up their kids at 2, we think there's an after-school care gap. We think that there may be parents who would like to avail themselves of EOEL, but if they got to pick up their kid at 2, they just won't do it. So we're talking sort of with folks on Kauai. That's where we're thinking of doing the beginnings of assessing the reality of it. And we have a little bit of funding from the COSASA Foundation to kind of work on that over the next year or so. Second strategic area is post-secondary readiness and success. One of the things that we're sort of known for is FAFSA. So we help with FAFSA completion across the state. We provide direct services like in, cafeterias at spaghetti dinner kind of nights to parents and families. But we also provide online help and an email helpline as well. Right now, when I wrote this, it was 5th in the nation, and then we checked. I won't admit we're 7th in the nation. We're in FAFSA completion, but still we're doing pretty well this year on FAFSA completion. I know Senator Kim, you were there at Farrington High School when President Hensel and Superintendent Hayashi launched the Direct to UH program. We helped facilitate the creation of that. We also created the data sharing and data flow infrastructure that enables the student data to come from DOE to UH so that kids can be admitted to the UH 4 years. So, and then we help with communication out into the field. And then our Gear Up grant, and I have Angela Jackson somewhere here with me. Angela Jackson is our Gear Up director. She's been with us for years running this Gear Up grant. We did an external evaluation of our Gear Up program. So the Gear Up program is a federal grant to help more low-income students get into college, whether it's 2 or 4-year trade or technical school. And so we're going to be in 27 DOE schools, 12 high schools, and 15 middle schools across the state. But our external evaluation says that Gear Up activities significantly predict on-time graduation and immediate college enrollment. So we were pretty excited about that. And actually that evaluation informed the way we wrote our new grant. Because what we did was we figured out, okay, what's working in our old grant? Let's make some of this mandatory in the implementation of our new grant instead of being, loose about it. Next steps there, in particular for the Gear Up grant, we're really concentrating on 9th grade math readiness. This I know is an issue for that the superintendent and the department are taking very seriously. Some of our data is really strong that summer programs make an impact on 9th grade. And so that's one of the things we're mandating for our Gear Up high schools and middle schools is that they have a summer program coming this summer, and it has to have an academic component on mathematics. Oh, sorry, and the final one I didn't want to omit is in this Gear Up iteration, every high school senior graduating from a Gear Up high school is eligible for a scholarship, $740. It's the minimum Pell amount, but every single kid in any of those Gear Up high schools, if they go to an in-state degree granting institution, is eligible for that scholarship. So we have to figure out how we're going to administer this. So don't ask too many questions on that one, but we're committed to making it happen. And we're excited about this, not just because that money may be significant, but it's also a great thing to be able to communicate. If you're in one of these schools, it actually doesn't matter if you're a Title I eligible student or not. It just matters that you're in these schools, you are eligible for this. Again, in-state degree granting institutions. So not just University of Hawaii campuses, but other degree granting institutions throughout the state.
You guys have Gear Up high schools in Waianae?
Yes, Waianae, Nanakuli, yeah. In fact, I missed the meeting today because I'm here.
Isn't Gear Up may lose its funding or?
So we were worried about Gear Up funding, and under the administration's original budget, it had been eliminated, but it ended up getting through. I mean, Gear Up's an interesting one because there are red and blue states that have Gear Up, and there are advocates across the legislature on the federal level for this on both sides of the aisle. So we were really relieved. The requirements for Gear Up changed a bit. So some of the specifics around targeting particular ethnic groups were essentially disallowed. So our target is now just socioeconomically disadvantaged. Okay, so career pathways. The first thing I would like to say to Senator Kim, because the last time I think we spoke in a hearing, you said make sure you get the pathway maps done. We got the pathway maps done. We've been
Somebody listen.
thanks to Warren. Whereas Warren Kawano is our pathways strategy director and our CTE guy. I want to acknowledge that these pathway maps are complete, but they are a little bit hard to navigate for an average student. And so that is why we're excited about the legislature's appropriation to the CCs for that AI path. I heard you all talking about this the other day with Kahele Duklo. That pathways program will take our maps and essentially make it easier and more digestible to navigate for your average family and kids. Right now, our maps are pretty useful for a CTE lead in a school, a counselor, a teacher. I don't know that a student would necessarily be able to navigate it, but we have all the nuts and bolts there, so we're excited that the legislature is investing in kind of making it a little easier to digest.
So why didn't you guys do it if it's only people with degrees can
Well,
navigate through it?
to be honest, that was our intent to begin with, is we wanted to inform the council. We wanted to make sure the counselors and the CTE folks at the school level could say, hey, you're in this program right now. Here are your options for where to go next, should you want to continue. Believe it or not, this mapping didn't exist. So you could have like somebody at Kapolei High School in a particular CTE program, maybe not, I'm not picking on them, that's hypothetical, but not knowing that Leeward does or does not offer a continuation of that program. So the work that Warren and his folks did was to go out to talk to all the CTE deans, all the CTE resource teachers, vet these maps and say, okay, does this make sense? And we finally got through it. So it was necessary and not sufficient, I guess is what I would say. Yeah. We expanded, we have career navigators. These are individuals who work for Hawai'i P20, but they work with, I believe, 1 to 3 schools, and they help students who are unsure of their future plans to navigate their high school senior year. So whether they want to go to a 4-year, a 2-year, military, go straight to work, these navigators work alongside the high school counseling staff and are helping these folks along. We're looking at some philanthropic dollars to expand this, but the preliminary data looks good. The engagement looks really good. The qualitative data looks excellent. We get a lot of thank yous and like loving notes and such, and it really touches our hearts that we seem to be making an impact with this Navigators program. One last thing I'll say on this one is with our CTE plan, although most of the money gets formed, so we are the State Office of Career and Technical Education. As such, I'm the state director of CTE, and we receive the Perkins grant money from the federal government, which has its set of requirements. Mostly that money gets split 50-50 between DOE and UH. DOE CCs DOE high schools and the UH community college system. We are using our reserve funds differently than we ever have, and we created basically a competitive grant system for high schools and colleges to say, hey, I want to do a welding program at our high school. If they can justify that it's aligned with labor market needs, we give them whatever amount of money it is. And so, it could be anything from a small dollar amount like $13,000 to maybe $50,000. But we're trying to incentivize exciting new programs that are aligned with workforce needs. And then we're also trying to incentivize alignment between the high school and the community college. So that to me, those are the ones I want to see more of. Is I want more jointly submitted requests between LCC and Waipahu or stuff like that.
So the DOD program that got instituted at HCC and Jennifer Sabas has been working with the high schools and the intermediate schools. So is that something you've been involved with as far as?
We've been in conversations with them, and but I haven't been that directly involved in the implementation. Yeah, they invite us to their convenings, and we've been having some conversations. We should get more involved with them, to be honest.
Yeah, lot because they're doing exactly what you're saying.
Yeah,
And they're not stopping just at the high school, but they're going down to the
Yep.
middle schools and putting them on a pathway. So they're doing Dole, and then Dole feeds into Farrington, and
Yep.
Farrington feeds into HCC,
Yeah.
which seems like a natural pathway.
it is a natural pathway, yeah.
And she's not asking us for any money.
I know. To be fair, neither am I.
Okay. So you said 50-50, so the funding is basically federal funding.
The
Grants.
funding, so P20's funding is a combination of general funds.
How
About
much in
seven-
general funds?
1.1, something around there, sorry, it might not be the exact number, but essentially, general funds, which funds some of the P20 positions, but also some positions in career and technical education. So we recently merged with CTE, so that's how we got those CTE G-funded positions. But most of our funding is either federal or philanthropic grants. So basically 7% of our funding is G funds appropriated by the legislature. Most of our funding is, Gear Up is a big chunk of it. In the past, we've had these federal grants for data, for early ed. We have generous support from some of our philanthropic partners throughout the state. But yeah, most of our funding is for,
Because you're not statutorily created.
no,
Right? Yeah, so you're
No.
just created from DOE and UH, and you fall under UH.
correct. So we sit at the University of Hawaii System Office under the vice president. I mean, the president, but the vice president for academic affairs.
So do you get any direct funding from UH at all?
The G funding it flows through
G
UH,
funding,
yeah,
right. Okay,
yeah.
so we give it to Big O.
Yeah, yeah.
But they don't give you anything out of their budget.
Well, it's all, I mean, yeah.
mean-
We don't get a direct appropriation for like Hawaii P20. Yeah, I think it goes to UH and then that's how we're funded, yeah, yeah. Those maps, as I mentioned, I think the next steps are to integrate those both with the UHCC initiative, but also with the DOE's personal transition plan. So both the DOE, and I think it's almost right now, I'm not sure if that RFP for the PTP is out now, but in any case, the idea is all the data that we have, which I'll admit, sometimes clunky, but it's really robust data. If we do a good job of integrating it with the DOE personal transition plan and the UH AI career platform, then we're gonna have a tool that's really useful for our parents and for our students.
Okay,
Okay, wait, last one, sorry. I don't know if this last one, actually. I wanted to,
let's hope it's the last one.
okay, I wanted to just mention this because this is a little bit different. This is our convening power or convening influence. The Lieutenant Governor asked us to convene just basically a work group on solving the teacher shortage. And involved have been HTSB, HSTA, University of Hawaii, CCs and College of Ed, DOE, us, and probably forgetting some. And we're going to be inviting Senator Kim to be a part of that as well.
you are?
Yeah, I've been asked to ask, yeah.
Can ask.
I want to just share some highlights from this, two really good things that have happened. The first one is that the University of Hawaii, and I heard Dean Murata talking about it the other day, is really on the cusp of creating true seamless pathways between 2 years and 4 years. This has always been a problem since I've been around. These conversations have been in fits and starts. They actually got down to the nitty gritty. They are removing a lot of the prerequisite requirements that had been there for you to enter as a junior into the College of Ed at Manoa. So we're really optimistic and impressed. And I want to give credit to Nate Murata, Janet Kim, and some of the other folks at the College of Ed, but also on the UHCC side, Kahili Duklo, and some of the other folks who were over there who are making this happen. Last one is we have stood up Educator Rising chapters in 8 high schools. So these are clubs, essentially like CTE clubs, and we're gonna have a competition next week that that where we're trying to get kids excited to be teachers. If we can't get more kids enrolled as first-time freshmen at the University of Hawaii, we won't graduate more and we won't solve the problem. We got to start at the beginning of the pipeline. These 8 schools where there are Ed Rising clubs are places where there are no CTE pathways in education. So sometimes they might be a small school or they might just not have as much interest, but we shouldn't just limit ourselves to those officially with CTE pathways. So I'm excited about this. The Castle Foundation, the Harold Castle Foundation funded these Ed Rising clubs, worked with the College of Ed. Yeah, and then the final one is we're doing a particular pathway ourselves at P20. Stay at home, grow your own. The idea being for neighbor island kids to be able to stay on their island, take some early college classes in high school, get some experience. Leeward is the partner and UH West Oahu is a partner. And so we're on our second cohort of this work. This is our data. We also are the statewide longitudinal data system under HRS 277, and we try to maintain transparency by providing resources to the community and our educational leaders so they can make important decisions using those resources. Thanks.
Let me just follow up on two quick
Sure.
things. First, $3.6 million, a workforce stabilization wage bonus. When was that and how, is that reoccurring or is that one?
No, that was a federal grant. So it was a,
one-time grant.
yeah, it was a one-time federal
That
grant.
went where, what year was that?
It ended, I think we have a no-cost extension, so basically it's over. It just ended in fall of
So was it a
25.
1 year?
No, it was a 3-year grant.
3-year grant?
Yeah. And it was a grant that we did, executed in partnership with the Executive Office of Early Learning.
Okay, and that made a difference.
We're not sure yet. That was part of what we planned to do, right? The idea was to augment these folks' wages.
Okay. The pathways to 2 years seamless transition to
Yeah.
4 years, which I think is excellent. But I want to caution that we're not just pushing kids or students to the next level just because we want to get them out into the workplace and that we're not substituting, we're foregoing basic soft skills, basic competencies, because the real world and the technical world is very different, right? So just because they get a degree doesn't necessarily mean that they're ready to enter the workforce. Maybe they got the skill to do something, but they cannot connect the dots, they don't have the critical thinking. And I hope that part, the critical thinking part, is not being sacrificed, because there needs to be a balance, right?
Absolutely.
Just as we get these completely online degrees, which is convenient and great for people, but the professors too, they got so complacent in that they do this automatic 24/7, what is it called? What's the word that they use?
Asynchronous?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so they don't have to do anything, but then we're putting out our citizens that don't have those critical thinking, haven't talked with other people, haven't had those relationships and stuff, and so
Yeah.
I'm not sure what kind of students we're putting out there into the workforce at some point.
Yeah.
Because it's gonna catch up with us, right?
Yeah, and I would say one of our strategies on that end is to ensure that folks in high school or students in high school have work-based learning experiences so they can go out in the world, learn how to be professional, learn how to be responsible. And the legislature funded the DOE last year with a bunch of workforce development money. And then, of course, the legislature funded the Hele Mua program, right? Another way to ensure that they're not just having this academic experience, they're having a real world one.
Because, the async professors, they don't get to know the students, they don't talk to the students, they have no way of really evaluating the students. And at the same time, I'm just wondering what happens to their salaries if they're not actually in the classrooms with the students and they have 24/7 and they're out doing all kinds of other things, then, and the school teacher is still in the classroom.
Yeah.
Yeah, the school teacher has and they still don't have parity with the professors.
Yeah.
And so to me, there's a real disparity between the two, because you're face-to-face learning versus async type classes. It's one thing to have a online class where you have a professor there with you and talking to you and you have groups. But to have this async, really, I mean, I'm not sure what.
It takes a very motivated student.
Exactly. And then they pass and they go on into the world, and then that's not how the real world is, right? So again, I hope that as we look at that we really consider, because years from now, we're gonna look back and say, oh my God, we were a disservice to those that got these degrees, right? Okay, members' questions. I have others, but I will.
Sorry, I would just like, thank you. I would just like to circle back to the after-school care for the EOEL. Are you folks not able to integrate that into the A+ program with the DOE?
I think the answer is we're not sure what the best connection is. We're the first thing we're gonna do is assess the reality of the situation, whether private providers make sense, whether A+ makes sense. We're gonna kind of go talk to folks and understand the landscape, and then try and pilot something from there. So we're really not sure. Yeah.
Okay, I know that program has been working very well in my district, so I just want to continue to see it move forward. So thank you.
Got it.
Thank you, Chair.
Senator Hashimoto.
I guess on that, since we're talking about our early childhood, so the thing I've been trying to tell, the EOEL folks is that they really got to look at who's, enrolling in Open Doors and who's going to EOEL, because Open Doors has, we haven't historically expended the full amount, right? So we have to change the law to allow more people to go. And I've been trying to tell them, okay, you got to go collect some data of who in EOEL actually qualifies for Open Doors, right? And it's just, to me, it's just a data thing that you got to fill up Open Doors, and then whoever doesn't, go into Open Doors, then you can go into EOEL. And I know there's choice, but we're leaving money on the table, and our goal is universal pre-K, and we're just not getting there. But so they're claiming they're going to go look at the data, but I was like, we should have been looking at the data from the beginning. So I don't know if you have any insight on that, but I think you with all the data, I think we really need to make sure.
Just to be clear, the early ed data is a little more disparate too, because even the EOEL is an administratively attached agency, so their data.
So are you gonna get their data once they start collecting?
We're not being asked to be the data hub for the early ed.
So it sounds like they're gonna do their own.
That's what they intend, yeah.
Maybe we got to go get a sharing agreement then, so at least you know.
I mean, we're
what's
happy
happening.
to help, because I think we have some experience in setting up data sharing infrastructure to make sure it's safe and secure and it works. So, but I think they're making a renewed commitment to work through the questions that you raise.
Well, we gotta spend the money, or else, right? We're not gonna educate these kids, right? Okay, moving on to I guess the teacher pathway. So what is your? I'm glad that you're working on it as well. But what's if you watched on Wednesday, we had this whole thing about with TECC. What's your integration with them, and are you guys overlapping, or what's the difference?
I mean, I would say we're overlapping in a positive way, right? The group that we convene is just the public entities, though.
Okay. Right,
like it's only those that are state funded. We're really just talking DOE, UH, the unions, unions. So I would say TECC has a broader responsibility dealing with accreditation and other issues. I know they're trying to work on solving the teacher shortage, but ours is kind of I don't know whether the right word is strategic plan, but we're trying to just get change numbers, right? We need more first-time freshmen who want to be teachers.
The data doesn't lie.
Let's get focused on that. And then at the UH side, let's ensure that everyone who wants to be a teacher can get out in a reasonable amount of time and start filling our classroom. So it's a little less, at least at this time, a little less, those two buckets are kind of tactical. Let's go get some numbers. Right.
Well, I know the university is really trying between go from 2-year to 4-year, but to me, and we talked about this at our last hearing, I think what you got to really think about is you're then always ending up at Manoa on campus, right? And so part of it is we got to figure out, and I think we have to take into consideration what Senator Kim is saying, but I think with teaching, you deploy them out in the field. It doesn't matter what island you're on, you can deploy them already right after year 2. And then really, do you need to be on campus really for the in-person, learning of the actual teacher, because they're actually out in the field. You can do some type of creative thinking there, but I think the frustration is that we haven't gone far enough, right? I think the 2 to 4 is great, but really the concern is the rural areas, right?
Right.
And I know that's an issue, but I think we need to double down on that effort
Yeah.
of we're losing all these neighbor islanders, right?
Yes, I mean, although I will say, UH recently responded, or UH Hilo responded by standing up a teacher prep bachelor's program whereas before it was
Right,
only
and that's
post-bac.
great,
So that's
right?
like responding to that work. I mean,
So that takes care of Hilo,
Yeah, that
but
takes
then,
care of Hilo,
you have
exactly.
Maui Kauai, what you're gonna do
well,
with
and it might
them,
not even
right?
take care of the west side of
Right,
the Big Island,
right.
right? So, but yeah.
So anyway, I think that focus needs to be there. I think we're not even capturing the low-hanging fruit, right? Which is, okay, there's just, if you're a student on Maui, you look at, okay, I want to be a teacher, you like give up already because you're gonna be a nurse because it's so easy to become a nurse because we have it laid out for you, and you look at teaching, oh my God, of course you're not gonna be a teacher because it's just way too hard, right? And so I think that's the point. That was my point on Wednesday, that's my point today, but I think at least you're working on it, and I think that's where we gotta go, but I think we just gotta break down those barriers, right? And because it's an issue.
So, yeah, okay. Certainly appreciate the key accomplishments that you put in your report, and the comment that you made that this is the first time that you're doing an actual P20, which, raises the issue as to how widely disseminated information regarding what P20 is doing and the data, and how well closely, like, do you folks present with the Board of Education, or do you, we need to have more.
We do, we, at least annually, more like 2 times a year, we definitely present to the Board of Education. We also always present to we're always, every year we're presenting our data findings to DOE leadership, and leadership at the University of Hawaii. We share with the Business Roundtable, Chamber of Commerce, folks like that. So we try to get our messages out and share what we're up to.
So do you have any formal type of reporting on whether the pathways directly lead to local job placements? And is there any evidence-based performance metrics on that?
So here's what we have and what we don't have. We have we can see whether or not graduates of particular programs at university end up in our workforce. So we've asked that question, for example, of, our 4 focus areas: IT, skilled trades, healthcare, and teaching. And so we collect data on
How
that,
long have you been collecting data on that?
couple years now
Yeah,
on
because
that.
every time we asked UH, you said, oh, they don't know, they haven't been really keeping
But
track
it's-
of where the graduates are going.
Yeah, well, we're not, there's a caveat there. We can see, oftentimes you can't see whether they're in the field that they graduated in. You can see whether they're employed.
Right.
So the data systems aren't that great, and I don't, the data system doesn't give you the specificity that you might want. Like if somebody graduates with an IT degree from UH, and then they're working in
McDonald's.
well, no, let's make it better. Sorry, nothing against McDonald's. If they're working in a hospital, you might think they're in healthcare, but they're really doing IT for the hospital. So it gets a little confusing. The one where it's not that confusing, though, is education.
Right.
And Nate shared the data the other day, right? 90% retention rate after 5 years. And then our data shows graduates from UH education programs are very, very likely to be found in our workforce. So when you think about like jobs that you can have in a rural community, helping your community that are a living wage, not saying they get paid enough, but it's a living wage, education's a really good one. It's a good investment for these kids who want to stay home and help their community.
So how would you say the amount of students that did that P20 directly served, and what happened to them? I mean, I know you said that you folks have, but do you have records on that?
I have to think about that. Yeah, I mean, we evaluate the impacts in particular for our Gear Up students, because that's where we're definitely on the ground. And then we have some other pathways grants where we're working with schools, and then we collect data separately for those grants according to whoever's the funder is. But never sort of in aggregate, yeah. But we can certainly share the Gear Up data.
So you folks did have a promotion, I would call it a promotion, but a 55 by 25 goal, right? So did Hawaii reach the 55%?
We did not.
Post-secondary
We did not, although the numbers improved pretty significantly. But the new goal that was set by the Hawaii P20 Council a couple years ago is Hawaii graduates for Hawaii's future. And if you want to go to that website, there's a little more information about that, what that sort of conceptually means. But the idea is we want to be able to create a future for our students, and we also want our students to be able to create their future, and we want that to be here. Within that Hawaii graduates for Hawaii's future, we got agreement from early ed, K-12, higher ed, to measure our progress in those three areas, and then a little bit of workforce data as well, although that's, again, as I mentioned, a little blurrier. But those 4 sub-goals of Hawaii graduates for Hawaii's future kind of give you this macro picture of how we're doing, not dissimilar to the last couple pages of this deck, but a little more in detail and with demographic disaggregations and such. So I think there's this synergy, right? You hear a lot of people talking about, we need a pipeline for these kids to stay home. We need a way for them to come back home. We want to create a Hawaii where they can live and thrive. You're from the Workforce Development Council. Like, it feels like there are more people on the same page about the purpose of education and the ways in which education can help our students to succeed and solve Hawaii's problems and be here while they solve them.
So what would you say the measurable improvements, or what measurable improvements you can show for Hawaii public school students, especially for Title I schools?
I would say you see, generally speaking, a couple data points that are positive. One is that the first-time freshmen at UH generally are the trajectory is getting higher for those who are in English 100 and Math 100 or above. So, this is one of the things we measure, because especially math, like the entry-level math can be an impediment to success. So we measure that over the years, and we're seeing an upward trajectory. I think a lot of that is early college, to be honest, because if they come in with English 100 and or Math 100, then they've already passed that hurdle. And they may have gotten it with a little more support than they would have gotten because they're doing it in high school. There might be a tutor, they might get more, time to work on it. So that's one good thing. I would say the increase in University of Hawaii college going rate generally looks positive to me. I think it speaks to the pathways that are trying to be developed. It's a little hard to be like, this is causal. But I'm a little bit optimistic that one of the reasons kids are choosing UH is because they're getting excited about the pathway they're in high school, and then they matriculate to continue.
But so you're not going in and you're actually talking to some of these students then? Or as just take a student, be like, okay, what made you, make that decision?
We do focus groups
Right.
at times, especially through Gear Up. We do surveys and focus groups through Gear Up. Not sure we've done it in the context of pathways, though. That's a good thought and question.
Because I think if the true ultimate show of success is if you can prove that it's because of those things. I think that's great
Yeah.
anecdotal information,
Yeah.
and I hope it's true. But I think we got to somehow figure out how do we track that, right? Because I think you're on the right track. It's just a matter of let's just see if the student will actually say that.
Yeah.
Or they might say something different, and we might not
Yeah.
even know it too,
Yeah,
right?
that's
So,
right.
Might be interesting.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, sorry.
oh, I apologize, go ahead. Do you at least have the data on what industries that they're leading into? Do you have at least that data?
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
Yeah, on the industries that they're interested in getting into. So
Oh.
teachers, nurses, construction,
We have the data based on their course taking.
yeah.
Yeah, so we can tell, like we're seeing an increase in, I don't remember what the name of the program is in high school, but it's essentially aligned with the value added centers that have been, like, we're seeing an increase in interest in those CTE programs that are about entrepreneurship and manufacturing of food products. So like, I think the investments that the Ledge make influence what kids are interested in doing in high school and college, and I think that's a good thing.
Yeah. Really quick, and then, because I'm noticing through some conversations that I'm having with some of the university students is that I believe some of them may be getting into business degrees only kind of as a place to sit there to find out what they really are interested in. So we can help to narrow that down sooner rather than later. They're
Yeah.
interested in college, they want to pursue a higher education. So I think helping them to find that career pathway is very critical, so they don't spend 4 years in business and not really sure what they
Yeah,
want
and then
to.
change and then
Yeah,
waste their parents' money. Yeah.
thank
So I
you.
think the bottom line question is, which P20 pathways align with Hawaii's workforce shortages, and how many students actually fill those jobs? So,
Yeah.
okay, so if outcomes do not improve or get exponentially better, what should change?
I mean, my honest answer to that is, it depends on the outcome. And I think these outcomes are chosen because there's like a research base behind them. Readiness for kindergarten, third grade reading, you guys have heard many times, right? Ninth grade success, first year freshmen, like these are metrics that weren't just chosen out of the air. I would say there's progress being made on some of them, and then there are areas where we got to dig down as a community and say what's gonna. But I would just also add, it's not one person or one entity's in one entity's control, right? Like, we all have to, like,
Right.
as it relates to reading, this is a teacher prep issue as much as it is a professional development and readiness issue within the DOE, right? So that's, if you were talking about third grade reading, I would say there may be a role for the Board of Ed. There may be a role for the legislature. There may be a role for the teacher preparation programs, and there's definitely a role for the DOE, right? So it sort of depends on the metric, but then that's why I think the power of the power of showing data is just that transparency, and then like, hey, if we don't know what we're trying to achieve, we're not going to achieve it, right?
Well, and that's why we're here.
Yeah.
That's why this committee
Yeah.
has asked and is doing these informational briefings, and why we want all of you here. We want the Board of Ed here, we want the Board of Regents here, because they're the ones that oversee, and they're the ones should be looking at the policies. And they can't make policies or understand it unless they know how the community is actually feeling about this. We represent the community, and so when you hear from us, we're representing what's going on in our districts, and that's so important. So
Yeah.
it really concerning when not everybody's at the table, because not everybody's talking to each other. And we need DOE to talk to UH to let them know what we need in the classrooms, how to deliver education, how to deliver the product to the students. And then UH needs to know, well, if this is what we want, then this is how we have to educate and prep our teachers to be able to fulfill that. But if that communication is not happening, then, we're going to continue to go on and wonder, why we're not doing better, right?
Agree. I will say this is the best I've seen communication. Communication's always been pretty good between UH and DOE, and this is, I think we're at a spot where it's better than it's been, better than it's ever
I think
been.
that also has to do with the new leadership at the university. I mean, I have to say that, so I'm happy that that's going on. But, we're here to talk about P20, and so to justify continued legislative support, I think P20 must, one, define clear current outcomes, metrics, attainment, persistent completion, workforce placement, publicly report annual results. Also, talking about Title I schools and UH campuses, demonstrate non-duplication, prove outcomes would not occur without P20, tie pathways to Hawaii workforce shortage, and report in-state job placements, show return on investment, including sustainable beyond federal grants, and accept consequences if outcomes are not met, including restructuring or consolidation. So, I think that's a lot that you folks will have on your plate, but I think that should apply to everyone. If we want to really make a difference and really transform how we deliver education to the students and how we support our teachers.
Thank you.
Members, any other questions on this? If not, Stephen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we are moving on to DOE. Let's see, okay. Budget and capital improvements.
Hey, good afternoon, Chair Kim, Vice Chair Kim, members of the Committee on Education. Thank you for the opportunity to provide an update on the department's capital improvement program. When it comes to CIP, our goal is to ensure that every student has access to safe, modern, and healthy learning environments that support teaching and learning. At the same time, we recognize that prior approaches to managing CIP have not consistently met that goal, and that this has raised legitimate concerns about accountability, prioritization, and execution. It's important to understand the scale of what the department manages. We oversee over 21.5 million square feet of facilities across more than 260 sites statewide. Currently, we have 42 capital projects in active construction, with balances exceeding $1 million, along with 15 additional large-scale projects in design, closing, or land acquisition phases. We appreciate the legislature's support, particularly in the creation of 11 categorical lump sum CIP buckets, which provide greater flexibility to manage projects more efficiently and address urgent needs. For the biennium, the Board of Education approved $784.4 million, and with Act 250, the total is $950.9 million. The executive budget includes $475.5 million, reflecting reductions across multiple facility categories. I also want to directly address the concern that the department lacks a strategy for improving CIP. We're intentionally rebuilding the program with an initial focus on governance, prioritization, transparency, and data integrity. The Board of Education is actively holding the department accountable by requiring regular CIP updates at board meetings, initiating an updated facilities condition assessment, and directing the development of clearer and more consistent prioritization methodologies. Earlier this month, we reported to the board that in the 6 months ending December 2025, the department completed 23 construction projects totaling $235 million. At the department level, we are strengthening oversight, improving communication with schools in complex areas, and increasing visibility into project status and timelines. We have also examples where complex projects have been delivered on time and on budget, and we are working to make that level of performance more consistent. Given the size and complexity of the public school system, we believe that a deliberate approach focused on improvement and oversight is the most responsible path forward. We appreciate your continued partnership as we work to deliver better outcomes for our students and communities. Thank you very much.
You stated in the beginning, you have how many projects and over $1 billion? What was that
1 million. 42 capital projects in active construction
And 1
with
million.
balances exceeding $1 million.
Okay, and then what about your encumbered projects? How many projects is that and what's that total amount?
Joining me is Deputy Superintendent Jesse Suki for facilities.
Vice Chair, members, Chair, you're asking for the encumbered contracts.
Yes, that and incompleted projects.
So in June 2025, we reported $798.2 million in encumbered unexpended funds. So those are contracts that are encumbered and moving. We took a look more recently, and our number is $592 million for 800 contracts. So these are, point-in-time sort of numbers, and we're refining that as we prepare a response to one of your requests. That's we're turning it on
How are you
Monday.
able to respond to the requests, or how are you able to even get these numbers if you can't even respond to our requests?
We have the numbers in our system. The way that you wanted to see the numbers is not how we keep our reports. So we're putting it into the format that your office had sent to us.
It's not my request, it's not my format. you folks submitted this, signed by the superintendent on March 23, 2023, to Senator De La Cruz, and this is what you folks provided, and it's over $1 billion worth of projects. And I asked this past year, over 8 months ago, I asked for you to update this list, and I have still not gotten it. So I'm not sure why you're not able to produce it.
Well, the office sent you an update, but
Yeah.
it didn't have one of the
It didn't-
columns you
It
wanted.
didn't have hardly, yeah, it
Yeah,
only had
yeah.
a couple columns.
So we're adding those columns on in the
But
response.
wait, well, how did this get produced if you don't have this on your record that you could just update it?
So that past one, which was to Senator De La Cruz for WAM,
Yes?
yeah, the person who prepared it at the time, he added those columns on his own by taking it out of the system, but we don't have like you press a button and that report comes out. So we're sort of doing it again for this response you want on Monday. So it's taking them some time, but they're working on
Okay,
it.
see, that's what I have a hard time understanding. Somebody comes in, they put together a comprehensive report, and somewhere along the line, you don't have the structure to continue to upgrade this comprehensive report, so how do you know where we're at? Because we can't even update this.
Yeah, we at DOE know where we are with our contracts. Reporting it in that way, that particular way, that takes some effort.
Well, this particular way shows design and obligated funds, design and obligated the date of it, the construction obligated funds, construction obligation date, the status, and the project completion shortage. So it's not, this rocket science columns that we're asking you unreasonably to provide to us. This is standard information, and you've already provided it to us 2 years ago. I've asked for this 8 months ago, and obviously I didn't have any confidence that I would get it. So I asked BNF for this information. BNF provided it to me almost a week later, less than a week later, although they didn't have the rest of the columns because they said only DOE can give me that columns, and they weren't able to give it to me by schools. So if BNF can provide this within a week, I'm not sure why DOE, having already done it in 2023, is not able to each year update it so that you folks know where you're at and that you can anticipate that we're going to ask this. Right?
That's a good point, and I don't think the request is unreasonable. But it is a different report, what DAG's prepared.
Yeah,
but it's
well, I don't want
similar.
what DAG's prepared.
Yeah.
But DAG's did prepare, they gave the account title, the lapse date, the amount appropriated, allotted, and claims balance. And they didn't give all the others that we wanted.
Yeah, we're preparing the columns, yeah.
But it worries me that you folks is like recreating the wheel for some of these I mean, 8 months ago that we asked this?
Right, when we reported initially to you, it did not include the last 2 columns that is not on the DAG's report, but we're adding it in, and we'll get that to you by Monday. I'm sorry it's taking so long.
Okay, I'm just concerned because, and I'm sure you were present at Friday's hearing when we heard from the auditor. And the auditor was very much concerned about the incomplete, loosely organized, inconsistent collection of school-level practices that is incapable of being meaningfully evaluated. In the heat abatement, they said unable to verify what was spent, where it was spent, what it was spent on due to poor record keeping, provide inconsistent, incomplete, and sometimes contradictory information. The auditor also further noted that DOE was never able to provide basic details about the program. So you can see where there seems to be this common thread running through. So, and the findings are not just isolated to this programs that they talk about. It seems to mirror the committee's own experience in requesting information, and it's not just this information, but, number of types of information. But, I mean, this is the largest CIP portfolio, right? Largest CIP portfolio. And if you guys can't have a regular update of what's going on, I'm not sure how we can proceed forward. And it's no wonder we have this $1 billion worth of projects. That's I don't know, that's sitting there. Well, we're not sure what's happening.
Oh, no, those projects are not sitting there. Those are encumbered projects that are in process.
Yes, but they're not done. And okay, tell me how many of these projects that's in this, how old are some of them? How many? Can you give me a breakdown?
Those are, I don't have it in front of me, but we can provide that. Let's see, we did,
Okay, this is my point.
yeah.
We've asked for this before, we asked for it again, we put it on the hearing notice. We asked it for you to provide it to us. You didn't provide it. You said you were gonna try to get it to us by Monday. You knew that we're gonna ask these questions. So, I mean, how can you measure where you folks are at if you don't know, like, we have 300 projects that have been on the books since 2016.
well, we have it.
2018,
Right, we have it
2020.
we have it in different formats, and we can provide it to you in that format with the extra columns. Staff is working on adding those 2 extra columns.
Okay, right now I'm only asking for you for the number and how old it is.
Yeah,
Can you give me
off the
that?
top of my head, but we can provide that.
Okay, so any given time, you don't know how old these projects and how long they've been sitting on the books.
Well, they have it in the system, right? So I have to get a.
Yeah, but you guys as the administrators have to know this in order to react and ask the legislature, are you gonna ask us for funding to complete these projects? You have enough money to complete these projects? You have to take it from somewhere else? You understand what we're asking?
Right. So we have it in our budget that was approved by the Board of Education. What projects we're asking to fund in the various buckets that were approved. I can go
Okay,
through those.
no, I've seen that. What I wanna know is how many of them are on this list? How many on this list is going to be completed? Because the superintendent told us that there's 42 projects over $1 million. They only did 23. Only did 23. I'm not sure how many you can actually complete in a year. But obviously, and that's just those projects.
Yeah.
These are projects that have been on the books. Again, can you tell me what's the earliest project date that's been, the oldest that's been on the books?
Yeah, for those particular projects that Superintendent mentioned, that's from, that was ending in December and from July, June, so it's a period of time. But we report to the board frequently on, periods of time and how many projects we completed and the value of that.
Understand?
Right.
Yeah, I understand, but I'm just making a point that there's 42 over $1 million, and you folks completed 23, right? And then you have these, and again, I have no idea where this is at this timeline, but just the fact that, are you aware of what is the oldest project that's sitting here? What date?
The letter that we provided to you previously would have that on it. Let's see. That's the one you have in front of you. Do I have that one? Right here.
June 17, 2025? All this letter says is, thank you for your memorandum of May 30th, 2025. State Department improvement projects attaches the list, shown this, it doesn't tell me any date, doesn't tell me when the latest project, how old it
Yeah,
is.
we don't, I mean, I can provide that to you. What we've looked at so far are the projects from 2005 moving forward to bring us sort of up to date with the monies that we can put to work for us and the department. We're still looking at the projects that are older than that. We're preparing a report for the board on that. And that takes some time to pull all that up, but we're working on that.
Okay. How long has these projects been on the books? Some of these projects? I mean, this goes back, right?
Yeah.
2016, longer than that?
Yeah, we go back
20
to the time when DAGs, the point in time when DAGs transferred to the department,
Okay, which is when?
2005.
2005?
Yeah.
So since 2005 to now, you folks haven't figured out how long it's been and where we're at? I mean, the board hasn't asked for it till now? Only now you guys are doing this?
No, we've always known. We have a list of all the projects, but the way that we prioritize, which projects are moving on the list is part of a process that we go through every year annually with the CASs and the principals to look at needs, and that we've we evaluate through the buckets that the legislature allowed us to create. So we prioritized based on equity, need, you know, it's in different categories, health and safety, you know, ADA
Right.
compliance,
Understand.
you know, project completion, you know,
But you do that every year, right?
every year.
Okay, so in 2020, 2005, right, you said? So in 2005, you went through that, probably?
No, but this is,
Well,
Chair, if I may, most recently, the facilities branch leadership have joined the department, I believe, in the last 2 years. So over the last 2 years, when I shared that, you know, we're looking at our data systems, we're looking at what we need to improve on, the transparency, the accountability, those are all things that our facilities office, as well as our IT section, is really looking at the data systems. And I believe that there are improvements that we need to make within our data systems so that we can provide what you're asking for. But just in the last 2 years is when we actually had a changeover. We've also shifted, as Deputy had shared, moving to the lump sum buckets. That was, I believe, a year ago. A year ago. So I fully understand what the committee is asking for. We are definitely evaluating the systems that we have. We have improvements we need to make, and that is coming.
okay, I think you're missing what we're asking. We're not just asking for a list of projects. Okay, we're asking for this to understand where you folks are and how are you managing the projects? How are you managing the monies? And if you don't have this data available, if you're not, it's, you know, it's like you're so focused on delivering it to us, but you're not focusing on how you are approaching this. So you do have these meetings year to year, but each year, every school will tell you what their priorities. But back in 2005, they had these priorities, and in 2006, they had priorities. And every year, there were priorities, and they were all needed, health and safety needed. Many of them are sitting here incompleted, right? They're incompleted for years and years and years, and now every year you have a new set. You have now this 42 over $1 million. Last year, you had so many, you're asking for more next year. And yet, again, this is sitting, and they tell me it's over $1 billion. So I'm just saying that, again, it's not, the assignment isn't necessarily just getting us the data, but if you're not able to give us the data, then how are you able to then manage this? Live projects, not that they manage the data, but manage the projects.
right. So
Okay?
those.
If you don't know where you're going, how are you going to get there?
Yeah, so we have the data, we know where the projects are, we're putting it into a format that's taking some time. But the way that those projects are funded is when project funding becomes available. So that is the value of the contracts that are encumbered, but the design and different parts of the process.
How much have you asked for the legislature this year and last year for projects that's on this list?
For all of those projects?
No, I'm just asking how many of these projects did you ask for funding so you could complete?
We have a completion lump sum bucket that we ask money for, and that was part of our
Okay,
budget ask.
yes, but I want to know which projects on this list that at some point were deemed important and needed and health and safety, have you come into the legislature recently to request funds so you could then complete these projects? How many? Do you know?
So we have, let's see, we have 290. We have 213 CIP line item projects. 97 of the projects have been contracted for design, 31 have been
No,
contracted.
but how, see, you're not hearing the question. How many of them is from this list?
Chair, what we'll do is we'll take a look at what you're asking, and we'll definitely come back to the committee with a
Okay,
with a
no,
response.
and I appreciate that answer, but I'm concerned that you're only going to look at it now because I asked for it. You understand what I'm saying? You are not aware, because if this continues to sit, And then the projects now cost more to complete, right?
They probably
There's
do.
no more enough money, right, to complete. Yet you folks are asking for all these new projects to be done when you have projects that we've expended millions of dollars, $1 billion worth, and they're not completed. And at some point, the money is wasted because now when you go back to do it, you got to do new plans, new things, right? Because things have changed. And so, and the prices have gone up. So how do you deal with this? And then which projects you got to scrap? I don't know. I certainly don't want to have one of my schools in here that's going to get scrapped.
And we do have to have that hard look. I believe over those years, what was done, now we need to take a look at back when those projects were determined and were put on the CIP list. Hard decisions need to be made in terms of moving forward. So we will have those discussions and make those recommendations, which will include, as you shared, impacts to schools and projects.
So what
back-
will it, what will
way
it
back from
take-
way back when.
What will it take for you to be able to make some dent in this? What will it take for us?
It's,
And have the Board of Education discuss this particular thing that I'm discussing, not just CIP, because I've watched the hearings on CIP. There's no mention about this at all.
We have had discussions regarding our, that list and the deferred maintenance offline, not in the board meeting, but definitely that is a concern.
But shouldn't these things all be public? I mean, that's why you have the Board of Education, that's why it's televised, that's why you have the meetings. This is one of the reasons why I've specifically asked for the Board of Education to be here in these meetings. And I hope they all got to watch the hearing on Friday we had last Friday. Because I don't recall ever that the board took up any of the audits. I don't believe the board even asked for the auditor to come and explain to them about the audits. Well, you did?
That's not true.
Okay, I'll let you come up and you can make it, you can respond.
Yeah, what you want me to respond to.
Well, okay, have you folks met with the auditor on the audits?
We personally didn't meet with the audit, but the
that's-
heat abatement audit was on the board agenda as well.
Right,
And
but
then
have-
what the board usually does is they hear a report on the results of the audit and the recommendations of the auditor, and then what the department's gonna do.
Okay.
And then generally what we do is on a time certain basis, whether it's 3 months or 6 months or whatever the case may be, put it on the agenda again and say, okay, this was what has been the progress. On the driver ed one, that one I take responsibility for because on that audit, and as you well know, Senator, this is an issue that's been around for 60 years. This is a issue that 25 years ago, that there was a recommendation that there be rules. And it really came to light in 2022 when a resolution was introduced by Representative Hashimoto calling for that audit. But as I read the findings of the audit, a lot of it concerned the Department of Transportation because the Department of Transportation is responsible for certification of driver instructors and so on. Now, this takes place
But it's
on
a-
the school campuses.
Right,
I get
but
that.
it's a 50/50. I mean, the DOE had their responsibility and
I
DOT.
get that. And so that one, yeah, again, I take responsibility why we didn't put it on the agenda. But the board is in receipt of audits, right? Both internal and external.
Right.
And then the board makes a decision whether or not it rises to the level that it should be on the board agenda. Because as you all know, many audits, if you look at the conclusion, they tend to be sort of benign conclusions, right? They're not, things look okay, whatever, So that's all.
But if we're spending money for these audits or for these studies or these reports, and I think that the public deserves to know, instead of put it on a shelf, deserve to know what was the outcome? What did we spend $50,000 on? If it
Well,
was
the
a
audit-
study?
The auditor puts these reports
No, I know that.
on, so it is publicly
No,
available.
but you folks aren't discussing it. There are a lot of issues on the driver's ed. And not to have the auditor actually come in and present and explain why the.
Well, let me,
No,
Senator, let me
finish. finish.
put
Can
it
I-
in a certain
Chair.
context, yeah, because I think one of the things that's been interesting for me after serving here for 30 years and then getting on the board I think there are three fundamental fact differences between the boards. And by the way, as you know, there are 15 executive departments in the state. Not everyone has a board. In fact, a minority has a board. And only 2 have independent boards that have the ability to hire the leadership. Okay, so you have 15 executive departments. Okay, so then when it comes to the Board of Education, part of the challenge I find compared to here was that board meets 11 times a year. That's the equivalent of the legislature meeting 2 weeks. Your first 2 weeks in the legislature is the equivalent of the board meeting over the course of the year. And so I don't know how much the legislature would accomplish in 2 weeks relative to what the board can accomplish in a year meeting 11 times. Second difference is the staff challenges. Each of you senators have 2 year-round staff. That's the equivalent of the Board of Education having 18 staff. When I came on the board, there were 3 staff, including 1 support staff, so 2 professional staff. So there's that staff kind of challenges as well. We don't have an SMA, we don't have an LRP, we don't have the kind of capacity, much less year-round board analysts like the money committees have. So that's a challenge as well. And then third is the sunshine law, you know? The sunshine law, I can understand the rationale for it, but it's created, it's a big challenge. I am so used to, you are as well, in this building. If I want to know how you're going to vote on a bill, I just go up and ask you. I can't do that at the board. I can't go up to a board member and say, hey, what do you think about this on an item that's going to be on the agenda? That violates the sunshine law. When I was here chairing a committee, I could say, oh, I'm going to defer this bill until next Wednesday. Work on it, come back. The board simply cannot do that. We have to defer it for a month, right? So we have all these challenges. Now look, it may seem as excuses, yeah, but I'm saying sitting where I sit now relative to where I was before, I see well. And then part of it is personal, you know? I've never served on a board, maybe you have. I've never served on a board with 42,000 employees in a budget over $2.2 billion. I never have. I served on a number of boards and commissions in the past, and where the budgets were so small that we could go over the postage line item, we could go over the printing line item. In a budget of $2.2 billion, we don't unpack that budget page by page, looking at hundreds of worksheets. In fact, even the subject matter committees in the legislature does not do that. The health committee doesn't walk through the $700 million DOH budget.
Well, they should.
That's not my call.
Well, that's not your call. So I'm just saying,
Yes.
we have our challenges here.
And so-
I mean, you know,
and
I have to, I only do this committee. I sit on Ways and Means the entire state. I don't just have DOE. You have only DOE. we don't have DOE. Okay, I mean, you have just the education portion.
yeah,
So
just the
if you're
education.
comparing, I'm just going to compare. And yes, you meet once a month, but you folks have the ability to meet more than once a month. Nothing stops you from calling other meetings.
Oh, no
Yeah.
doubt, no
Okay,
doubt. But
yeah.
let me give you a sense of that. Yeah,
No, I have a
We have
sense.
3 standing committees,
Yeah.
as you well know.
Okay.
Finance and Human Resources and what you call Student Achievement Committee, that they meet separate and apart from the regular general business meeting. But this is a volunteer board.
Understand?
And we have 3 board members that work full-time as well.
And,
so-
and we know that, and we asked them in the,
So I'm
in the
not asking for your,
confirmation.
by the way, I'm not asking for your understanding or forgiveness.
No.
I'm just saying there's has
Yes.
to be some awareness of the challenges. And
But-
so, okay,
I want you to know that I am very much aware, and we very much appreciate the volunteerness of people serving. But we ask at the confirmation hearing, do you have the time? Are you willing to serve? You know how much you have to put in. I tell them, you got to roll up your sleeves. It's not one meeting a month. And they all agree. So I'm just saying, you know, we do go through those steps. So I appreciate what you're saying.
so Senator,
And-
look, I could show you my calendar. I can tell you in the last 6 months of last year, I attended 25 all-day meetings, summits, conferences, whatever, cafeteria managers meetings, whatever.
Understand.
Okay?
I can
25
show you the
all
same
days,
as well.
Okay?
Okay,
As a volunteer.
yeah.
I participated in well over 2.5 dozen conference calls, Zoom calls and whatnot that lasted at least 2 hours. That's in the last 6 months. That's not counting the 6 community meetings that the board does. That's not counting the
Okay,
regular board meetings.
so what are you saying? You don't want these?
I'm saying that as a volunteer board, right?
Uh-huh.
That if the expectation that it's a full-time position, That is very challenging, and I think all boards and commissions, the 50-something boards and commissions in the state, if that was a requirement that you put in, that kind of time, as it is, it's very challenging to find people that will serve on these boards.
Well,
and
nobody
commissions.
said that. I asked about the audits, 2 audits, on whether you guys
No,
heard
no, you
or
didn't
not.
just ask about
I
2
did. I
audits.
asked about 2 audits.
You were inferring that why doesn't the board have a hearing, have put on the agenda every single audit that comes before the board? Because you just mentioned it's tax dollars, it should be transparent.
Well,
So,
I,
you didn't just mention the
well,
2
okay,
audits.
well, I introduced measures that we have to hear every single one that we spend money on. If we're gonna spend the taxpayers' dollars on these studies, they have a right to know what came about and what the board or whoever asked for it or who it was about
No disagreement.
resulted, okay?
No
So I'm
disagreement.
not saying they have to come 24/7, but to have the auditor come and present. I just asked that question, whether or not you folks were aware, because there were some
We
very,
have had the auditor come to the
Yeah.
board meeting.
so,
We didn't have him come for the heat abatement audit. We have what?
and you didn't even have the one on the driver's license. And I only raised that because not, like you said, not every audit will rise to that level. But in that situation, there were some very scathing things in it regarding the performance of the department and of DOT.
And
Yeah,
as I mentioned earlier,
Yeah.
I personally take full responsibility for not scheduling
driver's
driver
education.
Yes.
Yes.
So,
And the whole point of this is just that as the Board of Education, you folks are the ones that overseeing DOE, that I think you guys need to be aware, doesn't necessarily mean that every one of the members are gonna be here, but they can watch the video, but aware, and then take that into consideration as they are deliberating or as they have the board in front of them, that would raise some questions. And when those questions aren't raised, then it makes me wonder, why not? Or are they even aware that this is going on,
and your
right?
point is well taken, Senator. The way I look at it, though, it's a partnership. I just think whenever we have a challenge in our community, education certainly is a challenge. And if we're gonna resolve it, it's gonna take actually more than the legislature, more than the Board of Education.
Exactly.
More than the executive branch.
Right.
It's gonna take all the various stakeholders in our community.
Exactly.
The business community, the philanthropic community, teachers, students,
Yes.
and so on and so forth.
Yes, no
We should
argument.
all be at the table.
Exactly.
When I look
Which is what
back,
we're trying to do here.
well, that's one venue.
Right.
An informational briefing is one venue, but there are other
I know.
venues as well.
Yes.
You know, like I said, the board
Yes.
has sponsored 6 community meetings.
Yes.
That's another venue. The school community councils, which exist in schools, and I'm sure you all attend your school community
Yeah.
councils in your district. That's another venue.
Yeah.
To get a sense of what's the issues facing
Right.
that individual.
But they don't necessarily have oversight like you folks do.
But
Members, you have
this is my point.
comments?
My point is that there are many ways to get information. There are many ways to develop partnerships. There are many ways to collaborate on
Yes.
issues that concern all of us.
Yes, but
And so
Roy,
I don't think we
But
disagree.
Roy, we're talking about the budget, we're talking about statutory bills and so forth on how we govern. So therein lies the difference, okay? So yes, it is. I mean, we have that responsibility, and you have a responsibility of oversight. And so if the legislature have concerns and we're concerns about the budget, you folks got to be concerned, because at the end of the day, we make those decisions, right? On how much money, how much budget, how many board members is going to be on the Board of Education. I mean, all of those kinds of decisions are being made here. So I think we are, a little bit, the information that you gain here is very different from all the other community-type meetings that we have. I go to the neighborhood boards as
I
well.
hope my comments in no way, shape, or fashion tries to diminish the importance and the relevance of the
No,
information that
it
the
doesn't.
legislative process
Yeah.
gets. I think I'm fairly aware that
Yeah,
it's
you
important.
should be, yeah.
So, but again, you are concerned, in your particular case in front of the Education Committee today, rightfully so, is concerned about this particular topic here. I can tell you, obviously, there are the members of the legislature, they might be concerned about chronic absenteeism. They might be concerned about
Yes.
student achievement, they might be
Yes.
concerned about graduation
Yes.
rates. They might be concerned about the achievement gap,
Yes.
particularly with Pacific Islander and Native Hawaiian
Mm-hmm.
students. Or might be concerned about the Kaipuni program that exists in 19 schools. They might be concerned about the learning centers that exist in 29 campuses across the state. Everybody has concerns. Everybody has priorities, right? And the board, in my opinion, when serving for the last 2 years, the board's concerned about just like business leaders. You all are concerned about the high cost of living. Hawaii is number 1 in the country in high cost of living. You all are concerned about the lack of affordable housing. You all are concerned about the climate change and the opioid epidemic and all the issues facing the legislature. But it's very, very difficult for an individual legislator such as yourself to do something about everything. So you focus, tend to prioritize. And does that mean to the extent that you don't care about the other issues? I don't think so.
No, and as the chair of the committee and as committee members, yeah, we are focusing on education, and that is our responsibility. That
But as
we
a state senator, you care about the state.
exactly. But again, I think you missed the sense of here. It's not just topic. It's the structural, it's the basics on whether or not the department is able to deal with what's in front of them when there are audits and there are evidence.
So now-
But, well, can I
Yes,
please
okay,
finish?
yeah.
Okay, I will let you.
Yeah.
And there's evidence brought up about the record keeping, about having information, about these things. And this is what I'm raising about how are we going to deal with these issues? How are they going to deal with it? And not just this one project, but overall, if there are evidence going across that's weaving through everything, that these are the shortcomings that they're having. And because of that, I think that's where the Board of Education comes in to say, well, are there shortcomings? Are there areas that is lacking that we need so that we can get to not just the CIP, but all the other issues that's out there regarding our public schools?
So I think regardless of whose priorities are whose responsibility it is to do what, the discussions that we have, the community that we bring in, the fact of the matter is you're the chair of the Board of Education. We are the Senate. We do what we do. Only you can do what you can do, which is hold him accountable. So this is why it's so important for the Board of Education members to be here, because we cannot hold him accountable. We can bring him and we can bring the superintendents, we can bring the deputy superintendents here and we can have an info briefing. But at the end of the day, the fate lies with you guys. And so that's why we are asking for you folks and the Board of Regents to be here, because the buck stops with you. You are the one that hires and fires. You are the one that looks at the strategic plan. You are the only one that, in my opinion, can hold the department accountable in the sense of what's happening with our schools. You guys don't get the calls from the parents. We get the calls. You guys are not the ones that have to go to the neighborhood board meetings and answer for why the chronic absenteeism, why the buses are canceled, why students are graduating with 3rd and 4th grade reading level. We have to do it. And so when we ask you to bring you here, when we ask you to come here, it's not because we're trying to publicly humiliate anybody. It's because we want answers. We want execution. We don't want excuses. We don't want you to tell us how many days you spent in the calendar year going to this conference and that conference. At the end of the day, we want what you say to be reflected in real results. In real-time results. Not you'll get back to us, not we got to look at the data, but that's what we hear every single time. Meanwhile, kids are graduating, not even ready to go into the workforce or into career pathways. So we have to hold you guys accountable. So when we want you here, it's because, yeah, we do believe it's your responsibility, Roy, to be in the room, if not you, another member. And at the end of the day, if a board member is not able to be present to hear what's happening in the room, or for at the least, watch the recordings, then maybe it's time to resign. Maybe it's time to look for new board members, because Hawaii is in a place where education is failing. And we are going to feel that in real time, in future time, when these students start to go out to the workforce. And so this is why I want to bring it back to why we are asking you to be here. Roy, I greatly appreciate you coming in person. Thank you very much. But to be honest, you signed up for this. I signed up for this. Nobody feels sorry for me when I have to leave here at midnight. Nobody feels sorry for me when I have to drive in traffic waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning. So I'm sorry, but you're not going to get any kind of pity party on this side. What we want is results. And if we have to
yeah.
do this every single time, then we're going to do it every single time. And if you have to be here every time, I believe that that's the passion and that's the genuineness that you want to serve our students and our education system. So I just want to make very clear here that everybody here is making a commitment and they're making a sacrifice. But what you're not going to get from this committee is sympathy. What you're not
And
going to get,
Senator,
what you're not going to get from this committee is I feel so bad. You're not going to get that here.
Thank you, Senator. You know, I'm not asking for the sympathy. I am, though, when you say that our education system is failing, I don't believe that's a correct statement. I do believe that we have areas to improve in, 100%. We have areas that we need to improve in, and we have areas that we're doing well. I think when folks say that our education system as a whole is failing, I really believe that we have folks in the schools and the complex in the state that are working extremely hard, despite many different challenges. And to say that our system is failing when we're looking at our scores, our positive trajectory over the last 20 years, that we're improving on the pandemic recovery, we're leading the country in reading and mathematics. We still have improvements, 100%. I tell you, we're always looking for continuous improvement. But I don't believe that our system is failing. We have areas to improve in, most definitely, but not failing.
You guys are failing. And if you can't acknowledge that, then you're in denial. Talk to any parent in my district. Talk to any educator that's teaching in the schools that are working overtime, having to pay for supplies out of their own pocket. You go talk to them. Don't talk to your deputy superintendents. Don't talk to the CASs. Talk to the people that are on the ground. And right now, DOE has unspent CIP funds of $2.7 billion.
We have areas
Not
to improve in,
only you
Senator.
have
We do.
obligated CIP funds, according to our records, of $1 billion. Now, you can't even come to us and give us the basic breakdown of how many construction contracts is that? How many design contracts is that? How much purchase orders is that? Are you even factoring in the increases, the escalation costs, the construction management, the change orders? So if we can't even trust you to bring the basic data here so we can help you to help our kids, and you're just telling me, which to me is a little insulting, if I might add, when you parade that the education is leading in the nation. So I'm forced to believe that maybe it's just my district that's failing. Maybe you guys are failing Waianae, and you're not admitting that. So I don't know what districts are really thriving, but according to my community, you guys are failing.
And as I shared, Senator, and we met together, right, about the Nanakuli and Waianae complex area. I shared with you the different things that are going on and the hard work that the teachers and the school leaders are doing to help move the schools forward. How we're working with community members to help move the school forward. That is all happening. When you say that we're failing, though, as an entire system, throughout the state, we definitely have areas we need to improve in. I started out today when we talked about CIP, that we definitely have areas we need to work on, and we recognize that. We are committed to moving forward to ensure that our system does better for our students and for our families and communities. We do. But I don't believe, when we talk about as a system, everyone is working extremely hard, extremely. We are not, I don't believe that we are failing. We have areas to improve in, most definitely. But as a public education system in Hawaii, over the last several years, we have made gains.
Okay, well, when you are only able to complete 23 CIP projects in 1 year, I'm sorry, but that's a failure.
We have areas to improve in, most definitely.
We don't have time for you guys to improve. We need execution, and we need it now. We need it today. When you folks say that you have 800 contracts accumulating 592 million, and then yet our records show that you have 1 billion in obligated CIP funds, and then the audacity to come back and ask us for more money, for more CIP funds, when you can't even do the work that you said that you were going to do. Now you have to reevaluate the CIP list. Okay, well, what's priority? Okay, what's a health risk? What's a safety hazard? We already told you what it was when we asked for the CIP request. So again, you folks are making this way more complicated. And who is suffering at the end of the day? Our teachers, our principals, our admin, and especially our students. So we have audits that are justifying our frustration here today. We have parents that continually berate my office with complaint after complaint. So we have our sources that are very factual that tell us that this system, again, I'm going to continue to use this word over and over again, failing. But the only person that seems to it not be failing is you and your administration. So you're not taking in our consideration when we tell you the areas that you're failing in. All you do is continue to bring us maybe another column, or maybe another spreadsheet, or maybe another report. Maybe another executed project will be good. Maybe more teachers in the classroom that are licensed. Maybe getting kids to our schools by not canceling buses. Maybe that. Thank you, Chair.
Let me just, this is written June 13, 2025. DOE called for 12 new schools, and as a decade ago, it's built 2. And I don't know if this is whose article is is it a Civil Beat article? I don't know, it might have been a Civil Beat article. But I think that makes a point. You have to remember, DOE takes up 1/3 of the state budget, 1/3 and growing. So again, where's the efficiency? Where are areas that we can streamline? We cannot sustain that kind of funding as we go forward. As the federal government cuts back, how are we going to fund some of these things that's required of us? So we really have to start looking at streamlining, on being more effective, and being accountable. We have to hold people accountable, because in the private sector, when you don't accomplish what you're supposed to, they fire you. But not in government. We don't. And so we are trying our best to be able to take care, especially our students in our public schools, because they are our future. And if we're not going to be able to deliver the kind of education, and when you say failing, I've been to conferences where our country is far behind other countries. And I think I shared that PowerPoint with you on how we're behind China and we're behind all these other countries. We're running far behind. So when you say you're leading the nation, our nation is far behind everybody else. So I think we have to take that also into consideration on where we're at on the spectrum. And it's troubling. And you're right, there are many areas in which you can improve on. But if you are the parent of a child that has failed, then you are failing, right? If they are failing, then you have somebody's failed that child. So it's relative when I'm sure Senator talks about failing. So, but we do know that there are many hardworking people in our public schools, in our
Definitely.
state, at our university,
Yes.
in our agencies. Yes, many. And we have those that maybe are not doing what they're supposed to be doing. And that's where we need to really look at and be accountable. And the audits show us, if you read the audit, it shows us that there are a lot of incompetence going on. And it's sad to point that out. And I know I'm probably going to get headlines about me saying some of this stuff. But how do we get change? How do we get people to take these things seriously? And let's do something about it. Not just tell me, oh, this is the way we've been doing all these years. This is according to the books. Forget the books. Let's make changes if we need changes. We cannot do the same thing over and over again and expect to have a different result, right?
100%, Senator, and we are committed to improvement. As I shared earlier when we started, that we recognize the areas of deficiency that need to be improved. And as the leadership in facilities has started in the last couple of years, we have did the assessment, the analysis, and we are moving forward. And we're putting the systems in place. And so I had shared that when we started, and we're committed to continuing to do that.
Superintendent, I hear you, and I've been hearing you, but it doesn't match up to what's happening. And especially when I see stuff going on in my schools, in my district, and we're warning you and telling you this is not a good decision, that it's like ignored. Oh, well, they deserve a chance. A chance what? To continue to fail? A chance what? So that the students at that point in time is going to be at a detriment? No. I mean, there's got to be some hard decisions that's got to be made. It's not like the same before, we're just going to go along to get along. That's not going to happen.
And
Let me ask you this. Do you think it's okay that seniors in high school graduate with a fourth grade reading level?
I don't believe, Senator, that is not okay. It's not okay.
So that's what's happening, and it's happening on your watch. It happened last year, it's happening the year before, it'll probably happen this year and many years to come. So this is why the pressure is on, because the longer that you folks stay talking, meeting, discussing, finding things to be very inconvenient, kids are graduating with that fourth grade reading level. I really want that to hit, because
That
the
is not acceptable.
detriment, it's not
So-
acceptable,
so,
but it's
Senator,
happening, and it's
is that-
happening on your watch.
and
And I told
is
you
that
this,
graduating
and I
with a
told you the
diploma
people that are
or
in position that
graduating
are
with a-
allowing
with a
this to
completion of
happen.
a certificate?
But I told you the people that are in position that are allowing this to happen, and it's happening on your watch. And the more you continue to allow these people to be in that position, it's on you now. And we will continue to put the pressure on you, because you're talking that we're leading. We're not leading in anything. Maybe in illiteracy, but we're definitely not leading the nation in anything. So when I say that and you acknowledge it's unacceptable for kids to a 12th grader in high school is graduating with a fourth grade reading level. Okay, that should really start to have you trigger changes in your department.
Senator,
People in the
I will
positions
reach out to you.
that are
and
allowing this
let's-
to happen.
Let's talk about what you just alleged.
But we have
that we will
talked
look
about
into it.
this.
We'll
We
look
have
into it.
talked about this, Keith. And until the people that are in the position that are tolerating this and allowing this to happen, it will be this way every single time, Keith, and I don't want it to be. All you need to do is start making some real decisions to have real results that can reflect our schools in real time. I just got a call from a parent whose kids is special need, that the teacher did not show up. And then another parent who also is in special needs, that they switched the teachers. You can't do that with children that have special needs. You can't disrupt the environment. So again, this is all happening on your watch.
So Senator, I will take a look into that, definitely. And each situation is unique and different. I'm not sure what the circumstances are related around the two examples that you just gave, but let's meet. I can find out about those two specific examples.
Okay, but what are you gonna do about it? I don't need to meet with you.
I wouldn't
Just tell me
know-
what you're gonna do
I
about
wouldn't
it.
know what to do about it, Senator,
Exactly, exactly.
unless I know the
Exactly.
specifics of the situation.
I just told you the specifics. You don't need to meet with me. I told it, it's on the record. Everybody heard it in this room, watching, everybody heard it. What are you gonna do about it? That's the only thing I need you to do. You don't have to tell me, just do it.
I need to know who's the student, I need to know what the situation was, and I definitely will address it. I need that information, though. If not, I wouldn't know where to start.
Yeah, but Superintendent, I'm sorry,
you.
I have to chime in.
Yes,
here.
Chair.
I've been dealing with you from June, and you knew the specifics, you knew everything. We've met and met and met, and we weren't able to solve it. We weren't able to make the decision. And we finally came to a point, and I'm talking about Kaiwai, you finally came to a point in December that, we're letting the fourth grade, but you folks put obstacle against obstacle and obstacle about canceling a 9-year program. So I'm just saying, just because we meet with you and you look into it, but you don't make the decision, you don't pull the trigger.
Senator, respectfully, that program has been re-implemented.
Re-implemented, not
Yes.
in the original form it was in, it's only for the fourth grade, after all the damage was done and after the whole area got all back with weeds and so forth, and everything that was done for 9 years, and the CAS who approved it all 9 years, all of a sudden they want to cancel the program, and they canceled it without any kind of reason why. And then when they gave me the reason, it was a false reason, because there was no such policy. And the CAS had their nerve to tell me there was a policy when that policy wasn't even relevant. What, they think I'm not going to look into the policy?
Nope. We believe you will look into it, Senator, and that's what we did.
Right.
Look, we took your concern, we looked into
Yes,
it,
and then you put another
and
obstacle
the
in front of me,
the
and then
the
another
program is
obstacle.
re-implemented. And we
Yes,
look forward to
after-
working
after-
together with you,
How many
Senator.
months was that it took? So I'm just saying that, I'm not fully aware of the situation she brought in. I can only say my situation, and I'm going through another situation with you on that. Again, hoping that you're going to make a right decision, and you're going to do something about it, and not just look into it.
Thank you.
Okay, we had hoped that we would get into more detailed stuff at this point. But I think for now, unless there's any other questions that you have, no, we thank you for being here and hope that the next meeting will be more productive as we move forward, because we are going to have many measures. And again, when measures come up, it's probably going to be as a knee-jerk reaction to some of the things that members felt that is not being accomplished. So when these measures come up, we'll be able to probably discuss some of these things, because I'm sure there's going to be a CIP bill, I'm sure there's going to be a bill on governance, there's going to be all of these bills to address areas in which legislators, and again, other legislators that are not on this committee have come and talked to me about the concerns that I've been raising in this meeting. So this is not isolated to just a few of us. And I think you folks know that. But, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I know you have a hard job, and so hopefully we will be able to make some tough decisions and make things happen.
And we look forward to continuing to work with the legislature, Senator. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
We
you.
are adjourned.